Good evening, Ajax. Welcome, and thank you for tuning into the Town of Ajax Diversity Exchange Speaker Series presented by the Ajax Anti-Black Racism Task Force. My name is Natasha Sharma, and I am the Diversity and Inclusion Coordinator. We are joining you today remotely from various locations due to COVID-19 restrictions and precautions. We appreciate your patience and understanding should we have any technical difficulties during the live program. We would like to assure you that there is a technical team working behind the scenes. If we do experience any technical issues, we will be right back up and running on the same platform as soon as possible. Today, as the presentation and discussion takes place, we do encourage you and our audience to submit any questions, comments, and reflections down in the comment sections below. We do have our social media team behind the scenes, and they will be able to relay a few questions during the Q&A portion of the speaker's presentation. If you are unable to get to all of your questions today, then we will follow up with you and ensure that you receive all the necessary information and resources. So now, I would like to introduce our facilitator for today, Pauline Vassell, Secretary and Treasurer of the Ajax Anti-Black Racism Task Force and proud Ajax resident. She will begin the program this evening with land acknowledgements. Over to you, Pauline.
Thank you, Natasha. We'd like to begin this meeting by acknowledging that the land on which we gather is situated within the traditional and treaty territory of the Mississaugas, more specifically, the Mississaugas of Scugog Island First Nation, signatories of the Gunshot Treaty of 1788 and the Williams Treaties of 1923. This land is and will continue to be home to the indigenous peoples. Let us acknowledge the mistakes and traumas of the past through authenticity and support truth and reconciliation. Let us engage and celebrate Indigenous communities by being leaders of action in acknowledging the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples and the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's recommendations towards truth and reconciliation. Let us keep these principles close as we continue towards truth and reconciliation and as we move forward with kindness and respect as a community. Let us also acknowledge those who enter this land by force, particularly as a result of the transatlantic slave trade. Through the work of the Ajax Anti-Black Racism Task Force, anchored to the pillars from the United Nations International Decade of People of African Descent, let us endeavor to connect our communities and efforts to uplift the traditions of this land. Good evening, Ajax. My name is Pauline Vassell, and I'm pleased to facilitate this speaker series today, hosted by the Ajax Diversity Exchange and the Ajax Anti-Black Racism Task Force. The task force has been assembled to listen to local Black voices and initiate concrete actions to support the Black community and other racialized groups. Today, we have the first installment of 5 speaker series. Our chair, Mariska Thomas, vice chair, Dane Lawrence, and members of the Ajax Anti-Black Racism Task Force are incredibly happy to be a part of this series. Thank you so much for joining us. The topic being discussed this evening is Black excellence. Our guest speakers, Professor Michelle Shaw and artist Robert Small, will be presenting on this topic, followed by a question and answer period. We encourage viewers to interact and submit your questions in the comments section below. Now, I will introduce our speakers for the evening. First, we have Michelle Shaw. Michelle Shaw is an experienced educator, speaker, and coach who has been a leader in the development of soft skills for over 20 years. Michelle is a professor and faculty consultant of human skills development at George Brown College, facilitator of executive education at Schulich School of Business, and two-time published author. She unpacks complex issues bit by bit using relatable stories and practical examples. Then she provides the bite-sized steps that are readily actioned to deliver measurable results. She truly believes the development of personal and interpersonal skills can significantly improve how we work, play, and live with each other and have a lasting impact on our rapidly changing society. Our second speaker for the evening is Robert Small. Artist Robert Small has revolutionized the celebration of Black History Month in Canada through his art. For 27 years, Small's art has been featured in a poster he creates called Legacy. Distributed annually, the poster has educated millions about the history, contributions, and accomplishments of African Canadians. Small is a self-taught artist who has merged his artistic talent, skills as an entrepreneur, and teaching degree to demonstrate the power of art to educate people. Through his company, Legacy Enterprises, his convictions show through with the creation of various products that educate the public of the African experience. Now, to begin the conversation, we have Michelle Shaw.
Thank you very much, Pauline. And I want to say thanks to His Worship Mayor Collier, the councillors, Bauer, Crawford, Diaz, Can, Lee, and Murray, as well as Natasha Sharma, the members of the Anti-Black Racism Task Force, who we're talking about, Mariska Thomas and Pauline Vassell, as well as all the staff working behind the scenes to make this conversation possible this evening. Thank you very much for the opportunity. This evening's presentation, we're going to look at 3 objectives. I'm going to begin by clarifying and exploring the concept of excellence, and then Robert will come in and spotlight Black excellence, and then I'll come back and wrap up with action steps for how we can empower each other to achieve excellence. So, the town of Ajax has as its number 1 value to lead by example, empowering each other to achieve excellence. That's very, very ambitious. And that's what we're going to talk about at the beginning of this presentation. And so we're looking at excellence in the community. We're looking at unity. Ajax has this value. And so we're talking tonight about how can we empower each other to achieve excellence. To empower suggests that we recognize that excellence does not exist in a vacuum. The Oxford Dictionary defines empower as making a person or group stronger and more confident, especially in controlling their life and claiming their rights. That's what the word empower means. I like to unpack the meaning of words because sometimes we glaze over these words without really understanding what they are telling us. And so context is very important for understanding, for supporting, and for achieving excellence. And that's what we're talking about this evening. Excellence has to be understood in the context of community and in the context of the multiple communities within which we participate, all the communities that we're a part of. And so community itself means a group of people who share a feeling of affinity for each other, of fellowship. They may have common attributes, goals, or interests. And so most of us are part of many communities. Some are physical, some are virtual, some are global. And so, for example, you may be a part of a Black racialized community, a religious community. You may be part of an immigrant community, a sports community, a gender community. You may be part of other global communities and still part of Ajax, a community, which makes Ajax a community of communities. And this complexity is needed and necessary to understand in the context of a discussion of excellence. So it's important for us to also flag up that these communities which we refer to are not distinct. They interplay, intersect, and interact with each other. And they feed into the idea of excellence. So when we empower one person or one community to achieve excellence, we enhance the overall excellence of our communities because we're all interlinked in this way. And as communities of communities, one person's excellence helps and enhances the excellence of the overall group. And so whatever a community exudes, though, its members will assimilate because excellence has to be contextualized. And so whatever our culture within the community, if it's one of innovation, if it's one of inequity, if it's one of support, if it's one of discrimination, if it's one of empowerment, if it's one of community, and if it's one of excellence, whatever we foster as a culture within our broader community and communities is what will be assimilated by our members. And so in these complex communities, it's important that we begin to understand that it is challenging to empower each other to achieve excellence. Yet, it is essential that we do. And so, let us move on. And we're going to talk about what excellence is. Let me tell you a story about Tom. He was a single father raising two sons when a car accident left him paralyzed. Richard, the older son, had already accepted his admission to his college of choice, and he was ready to get off to university at the time when this accident happened. But suddenly, Tom, who was a breadwinner, could no longer support Richard and could not take care of himself. Richard had a tough decision, and he decided to take an online job that would help to pay the basic bills while he would stay home and look after his father. A couple of years later, his younger brother, Andrew, also got accepted into university. And so now Richard ended up being a supporter for his father, but he also needed to support his brother's journey to go and get his education. 10 years later, Andrew is working as an engineer, and Richard continues to work from home to take care of his father. I want to ask you, which of these brothers demonstrates excellence? Does Richard demonstrate excellence? Does Andrew demonstrate excellence? Share on social media and let's talk about what you understand excellence to be. Is it both? I'm thinking both. Richard empowered his father and his brother to achieve excellence, to be able to do what they needed to do. And empowering others to achieve excellence is excellence in itself. And that's how we want to think about the excellence this evening. The excellence we're focused on tonight is the excellence you possess in yourself. The excellence which points inwards to who we are, the excellence which competes only with itself, with ourselves, the excellence which we define the excellence which we can all access, the excellence that is supported by others and in turn benefits others. That's the excellence that we're talking about tonight. And so excellence is a lot of things, but we want to start tonight by talking about what it's not. So very quickly, excellence is not perfectionism. It's not exceptionalism. It's not celebrity fame. And it's not some special power that's unique to a very special set of people, not just a few at the top. Excellence has room for all of us. It exists in all of us. And so how we define excellence for ourselves is important because it's a personal definition. So you have to decide what excellence looks like, sounds like, feels like, acts like for you in your life, in your particular situation. And so what I'm going to invite you to do is take a look with me on a few ways that we may consider defining excellence, that you may consider as you contemplate your own definition of excellence. And so excellence, it's knowing your goals, because it's about personal standards, individual goals, big or small. The goal may be financial, it may be physical, spiritual, personal, professional. It's up to you, and it should be about you. So your goal, it's not static. It may change. And when it changes, you change it and make a new goal. The key is always to have a goal that you're focused on, however big, however small, as long as it continues to represent your true desires. And so its excellence is about keeping the main thing the main thing. And let's talk about excellence as curiosity. I personally prefer the word interest, but the word interest suggests that we have ongoing interest in our learning, in collaborating, in sharing with each other, in learning about each other, in listening to our stories, in investing, in understanding the histories, the journeys, the possibilities for each other, how we come together as a community. It's following your inquisitive nature, digging deeper into what interests you, into the people who interest you. And so being interested in who is around you, being interested in who supports you, being interested in who you could support is an important part of the curiosity that drives excellence in communities. But in order to empower others to excellence, we have to understand their needs, because we can't quite empower someone if we do not understand what they need in order to be empowered or to feel empowered. And that is not the same for everyone. And so that's where we need our curiosity. We need to be interested and invested in finding out about our neighbors, about the people we work closely with, about those in our communities, about those in our groups, so that we have the information that we need in order to empower them to achieve excellence. So I want to talk also about excellence, about knowing your strengths, knowing your skills, and knowing your values. Excellence is knowing who you are, what you're good at, what you're not really good at. It's knowing who is good at other things as well, so that you know who can balance off what you don't have. It's really knowing what you bring to the table and what you need at the table, and figuring out who will bring the things that you need to the table. That's really part of excellence. And so none of us are good at everything. And so it's really important that as part of thinking about our strengths, our skills, our values, our talents, that we are thinking broadly about what we have and how we can complement what we have in our pursuit of excellence. So personal values are crucial when we are talking about excellence. We brought up excellence at the beginning as an underlying value within the town of Ajax. And so when we're talking about personal values, they're crucial for promoting equity, for promoting unity, and they're crucial for both collective and individual excellence that is sustainable. And that's the key. because excellence can be fleeting, but sustainable excellence takes a different approach. And so personal values, though, for you to understand, make sure we're clear on what we're talking about. These are the things that we stick to even when no one is watching, even when social media is not scrutinizing us, even when we're not on the stage, and even when we are free from the evaluation of others, the scrutiny, the criticism, the things that we do in that space, even when we could get away with doing something completely different. Those values that we adhere to in the dark define who we are. And those are the most critical values for defining individuals, groups, communities that can empower themselves and each other to excellence that is sustainable. And so let's talk about excellence as a habit, excellence as a mindset, a positive, proactive, progressive way of approaching life, seeing the glass half full, not half empty, seeing excellence where others don't recognize it, showing up and wanting to make sure everything you touch turns into something good, and that anything you get up and do, you give it the very best in you. And when you look around you, you make sure that you never interfere with other people's opportunity to be excellent as well, while you claim your own space to achieve your excellence. And how do we do this? We have to get up and practice repeatedly. We have to practice without knowing. We have to practice without knowing, sort of unconsciously doing it. It gets wired into us. It becomes us. It's our characteristic. Then it becomes who we are. That's what habits do to us. It helps us to move from where we are to who we want to be, to who we need to be, and act in accordingly. So I want you to reflect on the attitudes, the traits that would enable you to act in a way that allow you to support, to empower others to achieve excellence. And who would you need to be in order to do that? And what are the habits you would need to develop? What are the habits you would need to let go of, right? What are the habits you would need to maintain? And think about that. If you are to be the best version of yourself, be the excellence in yourself, what habits do you need to stop, start, continue with right now? And so let's take a look at giving and receiving support, seeing excellence as giving and receiving support. And excellence is a journey. And so it embodies reciprocity. It's giving a little, taking a little. It's what we do on a regular basis. It's what we do daily, but we don't think about it in personal ways. So question, do you find yourself more willing to support others? You feel really comfortable to support others. But when it's time for you to be supported, do you feel a little uncomfortable with that? Or do you feel like you really have nothing to offer that could empower anyone? Or do you feel like no one could offer you anything that could help to make you feel empowered? These are the things we need to be asking ourselves, because all of us can give and receive empowerment to move forward. Some of us can give different forms of empowerment than others, but all of us can add, all of us can contribute, and all of us can gain in this reframing of excellence, this journey of excellence, this empowering each other to achieve excellence. And so I want to think about, how are you exposing yourself and positioning yourself to be supported? How are you exposing yourself for ongoing excellence? How can you use your privilege, the privilege that many of us have, to support others in different ways? What form of privilege do you have? And how can you use your privilege? Because privilege comes with responsibility. So what privilege do you have, and what can you do with the privilege that you have in order to empower others to achieve excellence? So we want to think about that. And a lot of times we don't pause long enough to recognize our privilege. We see privilege out there, but we don't see the privilege that we have in what we do, When we recognize that we have privilege, then what we can do is think about what can we do, who can we do it with, what can we not do, because sometimes it's things that we are doing that we need to stop doing in order to benefit and inspire others. And we all have this capacity. And so it's about what can we give? And I want you to think about this. When it comes to excellence, there is as much excellence in being generous and caring and giving as there is in being humble enough to receive. So excellence is on both sides, both the giver and the receiver. And so let's talk a little bit about excellence, the journey, because it's not an instance, as I talked about. Make it your journey, though. Make it one that is important for you, that matters for you, that fits you. Because what happens sometimes is our journey is based on someone else, our parents, our siblings, our friends, our neighbors, celebrities, influencers, and the list goes on. What we want to do, though, we want to acknowledge their excellence and their achievements, but we want to learn from that. But we want to come back and design our own life, design our own journey, our own excellence, because that's what we're going to care about, and that's what we're going to get up and be motivated to pursue, right? And so one other thing to note with excellence. Excellence is not doing the most thing all the time. It's not doing twice as much, 10 times as much in order to compete, because all excellence asks of you is to get up and do what you can to be your best, to be your neighbor's best, and to support and to receive support. So excellence then is about knowing your goals, knowing your methods. How do you work? What works for you? What doesn't work for you? How do I learn? How do I work? What supports I need? What is my intention? What is the discipline? What do I need to get up and do consistently? What actions am I taking repeatedly? What am I not doing that I should be doing? Excellence is knowing yourself, owning yourself, disciplining yourself, and going out there and making it happen for yourself. Excellence also is about looking out for others and supporting. When we are on a journey, a lot of times we see people who need a hand. Sometimes it's us that needs a hand. We are our brother's keeper in that way. We are our sister's keeper. We keep each other. We are a community, and we look out for each other. We empower each other. And so these are important things, because on your journey, there are going to be detours, potholes, systemic barriers, all kinds of obstacles, dislocation and hardships, loss, threats like COVID, which disrupts everything. This is part of our journey. But we have to predict that these things will happen, plan for them, collaborate, partner, and find strategies to look out for ways that we can still achieve excellence in spite of everything that happens. And then those where we see mistakes, where we have failures, where we fall down, that we get back up. So on your journey as well, not everything on the journey is negative. There are a lot of things on the journey. We can expect some unexpected support, unexpected opportunities, unexpected value showing up, new pathways open up, new doors open up. And so we need to make sure that as we're moving on our journey, we're open to opportunities, open to helping, open to supporting, and open to being part of a community, even when we're taking a personal journey. And so when things like COVID happen, and whatever comes, we have to be using up our skills to pivot, to adapt, right? To adapt, to figure out how we can reimagine ourselves, recreate ourselves, reset our journey, for instance. And sometimes this is what we have to do. And so if someone's having a hard time, we encourage them on their journey. If we're having a hard time, we hope they will encourage us on our journey too. And so let's go to the next slide. I want to share a story. Paul, at a couple days old, was put in the trash by his teenage mom. The garbage collector heard his cries and saved him. After a while in the hospital, Paul was taken to a foster home. And over the next 18 years, he lived in 12 different foster homes. In the process, he struggled with confidence, always hid the details of his story while at school. But lack of confidence and the fact that he kept to himself invited bullies who really had a field day going at him. He developed mental health issues and he couldn't cope in school any longer. He dropped out of school. He was living in his car for over 6 months. And then a ray of light. Paul gets a job and he's very happy for this job. He starts doing the job. A couple of months into it, he realizes he's just also found himself a boss that's also a bully. And his life is really, really getting very challenging at work. He can't afford to quit because he doesn't have a support network and he has no one to turn to. For some people like Paul, showing up is evidence of excellence. He's gone through so much that it takes excellence to keep getting up and showing up. And so it takes excellence just to exist. Many individuals within our communities go through struggles and trauma. And when you hear their stories, you can immediately tell their existence is the result of excellence. This is also true for many groups living in our communities. In spite of their collective history of trauma, of struggle, for acknowledgement, for equity, for opportunity, they show up and contribute to their communities every day. Many of these groups coexist in your community, and their existence in itself is evidence of excellence. And that is the basis for Black excellence. Black excellence is defined in terms of self-determination, self-respect, participation and control of one's destiny in the face of historic and current trauma and struggles. The term evolved based on the capacity of Black people to get back up on a journey while making marked contributions to communities and countries along the way. Its intention, Black excellence, is to balance the narrative of struggle and resilience, to balance contribution with excellence, to balance the past, the present, and the future, and to think about what Black people have gone through, what they're going through, and what they may go through, and what is possible if we all empower each other to achieve excellence. Our next speaker, Robert Small, will put a spotlight on Black excellence.
Now, thanks a lot for that introduction, Michelle. I really feel empowered myself to continue my pursuit of Black excellence after you've given off various definitions of excellence in general. But I'm just going to be talking myself about my own personal journey of pursuing excellence, the same way that many of you are on your own personal journeys of pursuing excellence, and show you examples of like Black excellence both within our community and across Canada and historically that have empowered me and as well as yourself in order to continue pursuing the path of excellence that we're on. And for myself, what I'd like to show you right now is someone else's presentation. So what I'm going to show you right now, I'll wait until, I'll talk over it until I can get my presentation up. So what I'm going to be talking about is basically what has, similar to what Michelle had been referring to, is that how Black excellence throughout history has impacted us and impacted our community. So with respect to myself, like I grew up in Toronto, Ontario, grew up within the TDSB school system, and consequently, I never heard about different historical figures that looked like me. So with regard to images as well as historical stories that would empower me on my own journey, even though I respected hearing the stories of past prime ministers and how they've impacted Canada, great victories in international sports, but those people didn't look like myself, right? And unfortunately, what occurred is that I wasn't able to notice that there was, okay, there we go. Okay, so so I didn't have something to emulate myself, and the first person that came to my mind that really epitomized black excellence in so many different ways was Muhammad Ali. And Muhammad Ali was my role model when I was younger, when I became in my 20s, and even until this very day. As you look behind me, and you see a signed glove that he autographed, not for me directly, but I bought it. So every day when I pass by this in my home, I'm reminded about black excellence and reminded for myself to continue to float like a butterfly and sting like a bee in my own life. And I had the honor of actually touching black excellence or being close to black excellence one day about 25 years ago when I was close to 25, 26, and I was able to attend an event with that was honoring Muhammad Ali, pretending like I was a press person, and I was able to get in there, and we were in this big hallway. And I was 25. I was just glad to be in the room with Muhammad Ali. He was on the other side of the room, and I was just glad to be in the same room with him. But then, needless to say, myself and three other black people that I knew that were real press were in the room, and suddenly Muhammad Ali started walking like towards the door, or he started wandering around the room, and I was standing right beside the door because I said, well, he has to leave. So whenever he leaves, I'll just shake his hand on the way out. But I wasn't be so bold to walk across the room because I really shouldn't be here in the first place. But needless to say, Muhammad Ali started walking around the room. And then all of a sudden, I asked one of the black people who I was with, I said to myself, said to them, hold on, is he like walking towards us? Right? And they go, no, there's no way that he's walking towards us. I go, no, he is walking towards us. Like his direction is like coming straight at us, right? So needless to say, Muhammad Ali got in the middle of the room, and then all of a sudden he just walked straight directly towards us. And I was so shocked at that. And I was so honored. And that moment has stuck with me for many years because at that time, I said to myself, and I left that event, saying, you know what? That man truly is the greatest. And now I know why people referred to him as the greatest beyond his accolades and his accomplishments in the ring and the many things that he had to defeat on the way to becoming the person that we know of as Muhammad Ali. Because he gave a Canadian guy that admired him a gift that would last for his whole life that cost him nothing several years ago. Well, with respect to my own personal journey into becoming excellent in my own right, what I would do is I would start looking at comic books in order to start me on my own path to become excellent in my imagination. So consequently, like I would imagine myself to be Superman, I would read these comic books of different characters that would be achieving great things and defeating supervillains that were so incredibly powerful than them, but eventually they would win. And there's only so many times that you could read a comic book and read about people who have achieved great things or fictional characters that have achieved great things and not take those type of stories into your own personality. And that's what I did. So consequently, I still think of when I hear about people trying to create a new movie and have it be Black Superman, I'm definitely behind that because it's one thing, going back to what Michelle said about being privileged and some privilege that people have that they do not have. The one thing privilege that a lot of people had when they were 5 years old that I didn't is that they had superheroes that looked like them, that were in the image of them. But myself, when I was younger, I was yearning for superheroes that looked like the people on the right hand side of your picture of your screen right now, because that would have helped my self esteem and helped groom it and help build it along the way for me to feel more empowered. And the one thing that I decided, and the desire for that really came in the epitome of a black character called the Falcon. And my own personal drawing journey had it was really in sync with this character. Because one time I was drawing Spider-Man and the Hulk and everything, and I decided to draw the Falcon, which is the black character that you see at the bottom. So needless to say, I decided to draw the Falcon. I said, "Hey, this is going to be easy because the Falcon's black like me, so it should be pretty easy." So I took up my pen like I did now, got my little drawing board, and I said, "Yeah, well, let me start with it." I drew his face, and then I decided to draw his nose. And when I drew his nose, it came out like this, straight and pointy. So needless to say, I said, well, that definitely doesn't look like his nose. So let me try it again. And every time that I tried it, it was just some different variation of the same thing. And I realized at that time that there was definitely something that I needed to work on in my own mind. That here I am trying to draw a black character, but I was having problems drawing his nose, and his nose looked like mine. So consequently, when we talk about anti-racism, we're not talking so simply as some guy in his basement in the chat, like now, living in his mother's basement, chatting and typing something in order to, in a futile attempt to irritate people, or somebody calling someone names. It also is internalized in that in some instances where you value looking at the physical characters of somebody else, and you've thought that those personal characteristics would be something that you embrace because you value them more than your own. So consequently, even though I was only like 10 or 12 years old at that time, I decided that, you know what, like I love how my nose looks, and I'm going to make sure that, well, when I become a comic book artist and go to New York City, that I'm going to draw black superheroes to empower black children to know the power that they have within them. But along that journey, I obviously didn't go to New York City to become a comic book artist, as I'm doing this presentation to you right now. And one thing I wanted to talk to you about also is the importance of anti-racism. Because even with respect to what I do, it has an anti-racism element because the posters, and the paintings that I'm just about to show you right now are very important to counter the negative images that black youth and black people take on and combat it. So anti-racism was a term that was coined by a man by the name of Ibram X. Kendi, and he created a book that term came out of that was called How to Be an Anti-Racist. And if you read it, it's definitely an eye-opener. And what Kendi articulates is that the underlying tenet of anti-racism is the belief that all races and ethnic groups are equal and deserving of the same opportunities. But the most important part of anti-racism is the next step, which is to do something that about the existing inequality. So consequently, through my artwork and through my artwork that I've been doing for 28 years, I've been definitely trying to equal the playing field. Because when I was going to school in the Toronto District School Board, I didn't see any positive images that looked like me, and consequently, it affected my self-esteem. So the one thing that I've implored many school boards, and I would like to thank the Durham District School Board as well as the Durham Catholic District School Board that has printed the posters I'm just about to show you and posted them in their schools for the last 5 or 7 years, that I feel enriched by that because it's providing black youth with images that I was not privy to when I was younger. So consequently, the one thing that we need to do is to keep pushing that envelope forward and be undeterred by anybody that states that they would like to stop us or impede our progress towards the future. No one stopped Muhammad Ali from becoming the greatest of all time being a champion 3 times over, only exceeded by Evander Holyfield. So we should learn from examples of the past to become black excellence in the present. And the people that I'm going to be talking about throughout my presentation are people that have excelled themselves. I'm going to show you different. Let's go. So, showing you an example of how I'm trying to both exemplify black excellence in my own life, as well as encourage black youth and black people, and as well as the general community in of itself to become become excellent in respect to how they define it in their own communities, but also excellence by showing black people within the community about excellence that has occurred and examples on a worldwide scale of black excellence, such as Muhammad Ali, such as Jackie Jordan Cursor and Michael Jordan. There's various people within this post that I created that demonstrate the excellence that has been shown within the sporting field. So consequently, this is a poster that I created in mixed media, both with my art as well as graphic design, combining it together in order to make a modern demonstration of black excellence that can be reminded about whenever anybody sees it. Okay, and the one thing that we have to remind ourselves when it comes to black excellence, that black excellence doesn't have any parameters. It isn't gender specific. It can be male or female or otherwise, and it can permeate different sports. So there's various people that I've demonstrated in this poster that have demonstrated black excellence in their life, and it's not important to just be the first one to demonstrate that excellence, but be the second, the third, and the fourth. And the people that follow those people only demonstrate that the first person that did so presented a very positive image for them to follow. And this is another poster that I created. And once again, with myself, like I take an anti-racist approach subliminally myself in showing images of black people in various emotions, not just happy, not just sad, but the variety of different emotions that captivate our community and epitomize it. As well as focusing on some posters I've created have focused on men, some of them have focused on women, because it caters to the different aspects of our community that need to see concentrated positive images of the same gender. There are some black boys that need positive images of black men to remind them about the pursuit of excellence as men. In addition to that, my 2 daughters, I always felt that it was important for them to have a fixed and concentrated uh, poster, both for them as well as for their female friends, and also for men themselves to remind them about how powerful black women have been historically, presently, and continue to be. So consequently, these are some 4 different women that I chose that are of international significance that I decided to focus on in order to put that message across. So those are people that are from different parts of the country. Oops. But the other thing about it is that there's various people that are in Canadian history that also demonstrate the pursuit of black excellence. And one of them was Kay Livingstone. And Michelle had mentioned the different aspects of black excellence, but the other idea of black excellence is a state of being forged from the history of our struggle, which Michelle mentioned. And nobody else epitomizes that more effectively than Kay Livingstone. He was a social activist, actor, and broadcaster. And in 1973, her efforts led to the first National Congress of Black Women of Canada. And as a result of that first initial meeting, there's chapters of the National Congress of Black Women that are across Canada that exist very day and have been part and are part of this presentation that you're hearing today. And the one lesson that we can learn among many from both Kay Livingstone and the others that I'm going to talk about is that if you want to be an ally, saying sympathetic words to your black friends just isn't enough. So consequently, if someone it has heard negative words and stuff like that addressed to them and racial slurs, just saying sorry to them and making themselves feel good is good. But the other thing is to address those people who have those people who are the initiators of it and saying those words to that person. In addition to that, even when there are no black people around and you hear racial slurs by somebody of your own community or outside of it, and they feel secure that they can make racial slurs just because there's no black people around, being an anti-racist and being an ally makes it is it's crucial for you to take a proactive stance and say it and be opposed to it even when there's no other black person around. Okay. So another example of black excellence is none other than Viola Desmond. And black excellence is a tribute to those who have sacrificed so that others could be positioned to do so. And that's what Viola Desmond did, as in, and I'll define it, tell you a little bit about Viola Desmond. She was a Canadian civil rights activist and businesswoman of Black Nova Scotian descent. In 1946, she challenged racial segregation at a cinema in New Glasgow, Nova Scotia, by refusing to leave a whites-only area of the Roseland Theatre. And once she did that, the background of it is that Viola Desmond was a businesswoman. Her car she needed some time to get her car fixed. So, as all car dealers do and mechanics, they told her that, well, if you come back in about 2 hours, it'll be finished. So consequently, when she went to the theater to watch a movie, but unfortunately, when she went into that theater, black people had to sit in the balcony, whereas white people were allowed to sit in the bottom half of the movie theater. The difference between the tickets was like about 2 cents. But consequently, when she sat in the bottom part of the theater, someone phoned the police on her. The police came, took her out, charged her for the difference in price between the ticket of the balcony compared to that of the to sit in the bottom of the movie theater. And she sat in jail for a day overnight. And consequently, when the community members of New Glasgow, Nova Scotia, and Nova Scotia on the whole heard about what occurred, they started protesting and they got segregation in that area changed, and it started a snowball effect where it eventually ended up ending segregation in Canada. So consequently, when you think of black excellence, it's not a matter, like Michelle had mentioned, about achieving success or monetary success or fame, but it's also the ability to stand up when the time is right and when the time asks you to stand up. Not thinking about it a day later that, oh, I should have done that, I should have done this. Oftentimes, it just basically needs you to stand up right there in the moment and make a stand. And that is also black excellence, to look into the face of fear and confront it. Like Viola Desmond, like Kay Livingston, and like some of the other people that I'm going to be talking about further as well. And so this is the part of the presentation where I start mentioning people that people actually probably know and talk favorably about them. And one of them that I definitely like to talk favorably about is my friend of several years, Fenella Bruce, who has definitely epitomized black excellence in her own way. And when we talk about black excellence, it's a way to amplify those making history right now, which uplifts so much representation that enables the following generations to aspire for greatness. Whenever you see me on TV, through her company that she just recently started up about 2 or 3 years ago, she's been able to get various black owners on television. So if you ever see any of my clips where I've appeared on CTV, City TV, CBC, she's actually the person that's been able to get me onto those programs, and she does various seminars online that demonstrate to the black community how they can achieve greatness and excellence and pursue it in their own fashion, in their own voice, and in their own way. And I'm very proud of her. Not only proud about her, but I'm I'm also proud about the next man coming up. That's Dwayne Morgan. Fidel Bruce lives in Pickering, but no, Dwayne Morgan, he used to live in Ajax himself, and myself. Similar, the one thing that's great about having great people surrounding you is that they're able to complement what you do by just looking at them as an examples of greatness, and thinking about how their success could be yours if you just learn from their example. And throughout the years, I've always looked at Dwayne Morgan as someone to emulate in different ways, shapes, or forms. And once again, everybody throughout the presentation I'm doing right now has endured their own struggles in life, and consequently, we just need to learn from these struggles and continue on. And for those of you who don't know who Dwayne Morgan is, Dwayne is a Canadian spoken word poet, an artist, motivational speaker, and event organizer. He also ran for office 2 or 3 years ago. So consequently, Dwayne has demonstrated that Black excellence has no parameters and that it's always expanding, as he's done for the 20 years that I've known him. The person I knew 20 years ago is definitely someone totally different now, and that is what Black excellence is all about. It's not just a matter of staying stationary; it's always continuing growing. And I've always marveled at the way that Dwayne has grown over the years, and I definitely like following his footsteps in that regard. And the importance of realizing Black excellence and recognizing Black excellence that is around you is just knowing that it basically creates a cocoon around yourself. So when I'm talking about different people that live in Ajax, Pickering, Markham, Oshawa, it makes the city of Ajax basically the center of so much excellence that's actually helping not only the Durham region but the city of Ajax specifically. And the next person that I'll talk about in this, you can't tell him that I actually put him up on display and everything. Okay, is my man Farley Flex. Okay, one thing that Farley Flex has for me epitomized the I shouldn't say epitomized Black excellence totally, because he's still on his way. And if anyone has demonstrated the ability to demonstrate Black excellence back in several days when he was a judge on Canadian Idol, when he was mentoring Black musicians, that continues until this very day. And I've always been proud to be in his presence as well as to learn from him. And that's the importance of having Black excellence around you. Is that you, and I'll use Farley as an example, is the ability to learn from people. And although I might be talking to Farley and like having a conversation with him, but Farley has so many different positive qualities and positive abilities that I actively like want to learn from him. Even though he's several years older than me, once again, that's something that you can learn from people who have experience and have been places that you haven't. So Farley Flax himself, he was born August 9th, 1962, and he's a media consultant, music promoter, artist, manager, and he's a motivational speaker. And that's something, and he is definitely someone that epitomizes Black excellence, along with some of the other people that I'm going to profile as well. Well, Farley epitomized Black excellence where it comes to music, where Vanilla Bruce epitomized Black excellence where it comes to media and promotion. Corey Joseph, who is actually was a resident of Pickering and is in the NBA right now, epitomizes Black excellence where it comes to sports. And so we also think about Black excellence as someone that is Black and portrays great qualities and abilities that make the Black community proud. And definitely that is something that Corey Joseph has done. And talking to you about Corey Joseph grew up in Pickering, who is a Canadian professional basketball player presently for the Detroit Pistons of the National Basketball Association. He plays a point guard position and is also the captain of the Canadian national team. And he formerly was playing for the Raptors, and unfortunately, he was traded to the Detroit Pistons. Went to the Detroit Pistons. Well, consequently, there's a variety of different Canadian talent that is in the NBA today, and consequently, it allows for various other people to see their example and pursue black excellence where it comes to sports, where it comes to basketball, football, track, when they see black excellence exemplified in this way, similar to Corey Joseph. Okay. Another person that lives in the Durham, used to live in the Durham region. I don't think she's in Toronto now. Okay, is Perdita Felician. And once again, it goes back to the definition I just said earlier, that black excellence is someone that is black and portrays great qualities and abilities that make the black community proud. And this is definitely a category that Perdita Felician falls into. And Felicia was born in Oshawa, Ontario. She is the 2003 world champion in the 100 meters hurdles and 2004 world indoor champion in the 60 meters hurdles. Okay, and that's her website right there. And the one thing that we can learn from this, that's an anti-racism lesson to be learned, is that pride has no color. And when you look at these various people that I've talked about, yes, they're black, but once again, pride has no color. So the same way that I looked proudly at various figures in Canadian history that have achieved great things and that weren't the same color as myself, there's nothing stopping people from looking at these examples of black excellence and finding that something to empower them as well, because they've overcome adversity, they've trained every day and put their best effort into it, and those are definitely qualities within black excellence that, like Michelle had mentioned, are universal that we can learn from. And that's what I try learning for myself when I am doing this presentation, as well as motivating myself on a daily basis by thinking about historical figures that have really excelled beyond what the limited expectations others might have had for them. And that's what I try doing myself in my own company. And the one thing that I do, that I continue to do, going back to not having boundaries, is that in addition to it, whoops, there we go. So I create different educational material, and I've been creating these books that I distribute to different secondary, primary schools as well as high schools that encourage Black youth to pursue science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. And I've been distributing this around the country for 4 years now, and probably distributed over 40,000 of them to youth, as well as the school boards across the country. And there's no stopping us now. So consequently, even within my own business, even though it all started with me drawing, I didn't allow it to stop that way. Okay. So consequently, even though when I was younger, I wanted to be a comic book artist, and I never became that. But I could still live out my own personal dreams that I had when I was younger through the eyes of a 52-year-old, and that's what I'm doing. That's what I'm doing right now. Okay. So these are two of the pages that I listed in there. And once again, with respect to when we talk about anti-racism, it's important to think about the positive aspects of having images that look like ourselves in order to encourage a next generation to pursue excellence. So in that same activity booklet that I created, I took up an image on the left-hand side of a black youth playing basketball, but this is a black youth that played basketball who saved his money, saved his money and invested it. And the challenge to the youth is to find out how much each stock is, how much it raises, and it goes down every day. So that's where you see the graph on the bottom. And on the flip side, many of us came to Canada during the 1960s, in Toronto, that is, even though in Halifax and some other areas of Canada, they've been there for hundreds of years. But the one thing that was important to our parents as well as the generation before us was just coming here to get a better living. But the one thing that they weren't able to do was to teach me about investing in stocks and investing in everything. So consequently, in that activity booklet that you see, that page on the right hand side actually talks about what are some of the terms that are used in investing. So then, when Black youth see those type of images that focus on themselves, and then there's a puzzle that they have to solve. They start learning about dividends, stocks, quarterly, and they find out what those terms are at an early age. So then their interest in investing can get off to a quicker start by getting accustomed to those terms. And close to ending off my presentation, going back to the need for anti-racism practices to counter any type of racist elements that are within our society, I always implore the Black community, as well as the community in general, but specifically the Black community, that there's a million of us across in Toronto. The city of Ajax is the greatest concentration of Black people with a secondary education across Canada. So consequently, regardless of whether we're successful in getting people to be allies in our anti-racist struggle, it's also important for us to take that on ourselves, since it's an issue that we deal with specifically. So consequently, I'd ask everybody and whatever talent they have to use 5% of their talent to address anti-racism and to be part of the anti-racism committee. And I've been doing that through my own talent, where it comes to creating images that positively should demonstrate the Black excellence that's within our community, and to educate those who are younger about it as well, right? So with that, that's my presentation. I'd like to show you a little flashback to my earlier years. So consequently, what I'll do is that here I am. I drew that before we started this presentation. So consequently, anybody that wants to email the Ajax Diversity Committee and wants it, I'll send this in the mail to them. Okay. So just provide them with their address. And I'd like to thank you for having me come and have a be and talk to you about Black excellence and pursue Black excellence and excellence in your own lives as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Robert. That was excellent. And now, my slides, please. What I want to come back and close out with, I want to say thank you very much for such an expansive explanation of Black excellence, Robert. And I want to talk to you about what Robert's explanation and his own personal story demonstrates. It demonstrates that the seeds of excellence are already within us. Robert's story shows how we cultivate excellence over time, 28 years, not yesterday. And so it's knowing what your goals are, where you're going, and giving yourself time to get there. It's identifying the processes that are required for you to achieve your own excellence. It's believing in your skills and strengths. And it's knowing what supports you need. Like I said, it's a personal journey, but you don't have to walk alone. It's keeping a positive, proactive, and progressive mindset, always looking out for ways to make things happen for yourself. It's also getting up and doing it day after day after day, and especially on those days when you really don't feel like doing it. That's the day that you really need to get it done. That's the difference between those who achieve excellence and those who don't. That persistence that makes you knock on many doors or knock on one door multiple times, those doors that are important, to have them open, to really be there and not leave that door. That is what's going to do it for us. It's about being able to predict, to know for sure that there will be obstacles, challenges, barriers in our way. There's no journey that doesn't have this. And so plan for them, expect them, get in the mindset for them, and power up to get through them. and seek support, because some of these barriers you didn't put in place and you can't move it on your own. Seek support, advocate, look out for allyship, whatever we need to get through the hurdles, the potholes in the way. It's also about being true to your values, to really knowing that you're not just excellent when the lights are on, but when the lights are off and you sit quietly with yourself, that you imagine excellence for yourself and that you get up and you execute it on a daily basis. And you don't need anyone to check in on you, no one to hold you accountable, because the highest level of accountability is integrity. It's to yourself, holding yourself true to delivering for yourself what you desire and deserve in your excellence. And so what I want to suggest for us then is to think about what our journey could look like. Your own journey, your own way. Robert shared many examples. Those are not the examples that you necessarily want. Pull the good examples, pull the good lessons from it, step back and design your own journey. Remember, we take inspiration from stories. Representation matters. It helps you to see what's possible, but then go ahead and design your own way. And what is really important as well is that you recognize you can take little steps. You don't need to get up and get it done all at once. It's like trying to work out 12 hours one day to lose weight. That's not going to get it done. It's getting up and doing that 15-minute every day, over time, over time, over time. And so I want to encourage you to remember that it takes excellence to produce quality contribution. A town is only as good as its members. And so when we say we want to empower each other to achieve excellence, this is really important, because when the individual is excellent, when groups are excellent, we have a community and communities that are excellent. So it takes consistent action to get this done. And let's come back to the idea of excellence in communities of communities. When individuals and groups become excellent, we create a community conducive to empowering each other. We have the skills, the strengths, we have the right attitude, we have the mindset, we have the values in place that are conducive to empowering, to giving people the capacity to own their own rights, to claim their rights, to control their lives, to be stronger and to be more confident. When a community builds on excellence, all of its members assimilate excellence, because we do not live in a vacuum. And so it's really important for us today, but it's also important for our future, because our future depends on it, and our children need a legacy of excellence to keep this moving forward. And so I want to encourage you, Ajax, and all of our neighbors across the world that's tuned in. Ajax, you say you value excellence. And tonight, what you did was to take a further step to help the community to clarify what we mean when we say excellence, and to spotlight Black excellence, one segment of the community. But Black excellence does not exist in a vacuum. Black excellence sits within a community, and the community needs to empower the Black people to achieve their excellence. And many, many members of the Black community also have massive contributions that we can make to other communities to help each other, to empower each other to achieve excellence. And so the next steps then for Ajax is to go forward and to take the necessary steps to action what it means to empower. Now we know what it is. Now it's time to go and do it. Congratulations, Ajax, and thank you again for the opportunity to engage in this conversation, to define excellence, to spotlight Black excellence, and to encourage us to go forward, to empower each other to achieve it. It was my pleasure sharing with you. I'm Michelle Shaw. Stay connected on LinkedIn. And please share in social media so we can continue this conversation when we go offline. Thank you.
Thank you to Michelle and Robert for sharing your thoughts and contributing to the conversation on Black excellence today. Now we'll begin the question and answer portion of our program by taking a few questions that have been submitted by our audience. The first question is from Devin Shepherd. And Devin writes, during the Black Lives Matter movement, many people started to learn more about anti-Black racism and oppression. How does anti-Black racism relate to Black excellence? And how can we keep the momentum going in the future? This one is for Michelle.
Okay, so how does anti-Black racism relate to Black excellence, and how can we keep the momentum going? So
Yes.
these two terms are related and interrelated. And so I'm glad you asked that question. And so anti-Black racism really refers to sort of these long-standing policies, practices within institutions, rooted, if you will, in systems, in communities, in structures, and they reinforce outdated negative stereotypes and beliefs about Black people and where they should be located in our society and what their experiences should be like. And this is based on a long-standing history of enslavement and colonialization, etc., and so on. That is the backdrop. The anti-Black racism deals specifically with addressing those practices, those beliefs that impact the experiences and outcomes for Black people everywhere, in schools, at work, and in the community. Black excellence takes a look at the other side to recognize that in spite of all of that, we need to acknowledge the Black community for being able to get up, show up, deliver, learn, achieve, and excel, and even show exceptionalism. And so Black excellence is put in the spotlight on that self-determination, that ability to control your own goals, your own personal journey, and also to claim your rights, to advocate for yourself, to seek out allyship, to seek support, and to be in that space of owning your personal journey and really focus on moving it forward, including participating in moving the ball forward in anti-racist policies and practices, and gathering and bringing other people along with us. And so essentially, Black excellence takes a more personal approach, sits with the individual. Anti-Black racism sits across all of these massive institutions globally that sort of work together through the systems that were constructed then, but need to be revisited, revised, disrupted, interrupted in order to disband and dismantle the policies and practices that continue to impact the outcomes and experiences of Black people. And so what Black people have is that Black excellence that they can pursue, but Black excellence is impacted by these policies, by the systemic racism. And so the two need to work together in order for us to be able to move forward.
Thank you. Thank you. I have a question here for Robert. This one is from David, and David asks, what is one piece of advice that you would give another artist who wants to impact social justice with art?
Good question.
Yeah, thank you for the question, David. The one suggestion I would give is something that I learned myself with regards to pursuing my own artistic talent, is that never think that like your thought pattern is somehow something that people won't be attracted to. So if you want to pursue artwork that has more of a social justice orientation, that is the market that you're looking for. You're looking for people that think like you, that either think like you or they admire how you think. So consequently, when I first started doing my posters and everything, or even doing my artistic career, I created an image where it has Muhammad Ali standing in a row with Elijah Muhammad, Frederick Douglass, Elijah Muhammad, Frederick Douglass, Martin Luther King, and Malcolm X. And on the bottom, there's this image of Uncle Sam, and he was knocked out by Muhammad Ali. And my father at the time, God rest his soul, he told me, Robert, don't show that picture anywhere because white people are not going to hire you if they think that you're anti-white or anything like that. And I had tried explaining to him that, Dad, Uncle Sam isn't really a white person. He's like the epitome, caricature of the United States. So it's not, Muhammad Ali isn't literally knocking down a white person. He's knocking down like the United States. But consequently, my Bayesian parents are not going to take that type of argument. So but one thing I learned from that is even though I created like 5 different pictures at that time, that picture sold the most, and I sold out of it a lot quicker than I did the other ones whose message was a little bit more tame and such like that. So I have that picture on my website, so you can check it out at legacyposter.com. But in addition to that, it taught me a lesson that I wanted to impart to you is that to never think that a picture that you create is something that you should or should not show for people because you're looking for people that think like you, not thinking of people that don't think like you. So consequently, I would tell you just to go for it and see what happens.
Thank you so much. Now, there for Michelle, this other question, and it is from Samantha Roberts, and she asks, I am a huge fan of both of your work. In what ways do you think we can still instill Black excellence in our children and youth who are often feel impartial or not enough? A quick answer
Very
for
good
that one?
question. Very good question. Thank you very much. That's a really good question. I think first we need to go back and acknowledge and recognize the history that brought us to this place. How did it come to be that we're at this place where these particular children are not feeling confident or are feeling some degree of lack? So that's the place that we need to start, and then we need to go back and see how we can put some systems in place to address that. The other thing that we have to do is to think about how we can empower these children to take a personal journey to address some of the disparities and inequities that they face every day. How are we going to rally our community to help to address these things? It's a twofold approach, really, because for one, we want to make sure we are shifting structures and we're shifting the narrative so that they're seeing positive representatives like Robert showed tonight, positive representatives that can help them aspire. But we also need to make sure that they know that they have to cultivate and design their own personal journeys. So we need to be talking with them about what skills they want to develop, where they want to see themselves. We need to be having more conversations, not just about do your homework, but we need to be broadening that dialogue to what skills, what strengths do you have? We need to be building their confidence by letting them see what they're already good at, what they're already excellent at, helping them with some of the content we discussed tonight about the fact that you are already excellent in yourself. And then we want to make sure we balance that by not saying, like, if you don't want to do anything, you don't have to do anything, you're already excellent. That's not what we're saying. We want to make sure that they know getting up and doing the right thing, going off, doing your homework, you are already demonstrating excellence in those little things that you're doing. Just keep it on the right track. Robert's journey has been 28 years. It doesn't happen overnight. Keep it down that road.
Thank
Building
you.
confidence
Thank you
is
so
the key.
much.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. So thanks to everyone who submitted questions, and thanks to the speakers. Just a reminder that we encourage you all to access the resources and information on the Task Force Facebook page to help elevate excellence within our community through programming and other opportunities. Now, as we conclude, Mayor Collier has a video message for everyone this evening.
Good evening. On behalf of Ajax Council, I'd like to thank the Ajax Anti-Black Racism Task Force for launching this series and express our gratitude to this evening's speakers for lending your voices, lived experiences, and expertise to these conversations. Black excellence is all around us. It needs to be recognized, encouraged, and celebrated. The themes selected by the Ajax Anti-Black Racism Task Force for this series are designed to challenge antiquated ideas and build knowledge and understanding as we continue to combat systemic and institutional anti-Black racism within the community. A recording will be made available immediately after this program, and I encourage everyone to view and tune into the next installments in this 5-part series. Thank you, everyone who's joined, and enjoy the evening.
Thank you, Mayor Collier, for your special video message and thoughtful words. And thank you, Pauline, for our wonderful facilitator for the evening. Thank you to both speakers, Michelle Shaw and Robert Small, for your time and dedication in contributing to the exchange of knowledge and conversation on Black excellence this evening. To continue the conversation, please visit us at ajax.ca/taskforce or facebook.com/AABRTF. And as usual, you can always connect with us on our Town of Ajax social media platforms. Thank you and have a wonderful evening.